I just would not understand if there's a handful of Republicans who join Democrats who get to determine who's the Speaker of the House is.
Who's the speakers of the House is? That's the now former erstwhile Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Some kind of a day yesterday here in Washington, D.C. More than our usual dose of drama. And a couple of things to talk about surrounding the ups and downs of Kevin McCarthy's political career, of the Republican Party in control of the House of Representatives. And opinions vary, let me say that. Matt Gaetz, who I know a bit and has been a guest on the panel on my Newsmax television show a number of times, and I like Matt Gaetz, and I think he's a smart guy, and he's a funny guy, and he's fun. And he made his move because the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, did not make good on a series of promises he made in order to secure votes to become the Speaker of the House. Important promises having to do with, Washington speak. We all speak in like CR. Oh, really? Another CR? We all talk CRs. How about regular order? Do you discuss regular order around the dinner table? Because regular order must be restored. I'm pounding my fist on the countertop here. Regular order must be restored. And it really ought to be restored. And, 12 appropriations bills, it's only required by law. But why would the Congress obey the law? They passed the law. That means they don't have to follow or obey the law because they passed it. They can just undo it. And lots of stuff. I got to tell you, Kevin McCarthy allowing the Congress, the House, to go on recess for 6 weeks without passing 12 appropriations bills and then rolling back into this ridiculous CR, congressional resolution, and everything's bundled into one, and everybody throws their own kitchen sink into it, and everybody gets apparently what they want except the American taxpayers, and we keep blowing up the national debt, $33 trillion and growing like Flintstone kids, and it just keeps going and going and going. And now there's a lot of mayhem, and while I agree with a great many of the things that Congressman Matt Gaetz, a Republican from Florida, is protesting, and I understand. I've got to think maybe there could have been a better plan in place, maybe a better plan, because now there's, the clock is ticking again. I think CNN, who cares, is going to start their countdown clock to the next government shutdown, and little Timmy won't be able to go to Jellystone Park, and, we start the whole thing over again because Washington, D.C. is nothing but a bad cable television show, and it's our form of government. So we've got that going for us, and I've got a bunch for you on that today. The vacancy where the Speaker of the House is now an empty seat. There is an empty seat there where the Speaker of the House is supposed to sit, and it was really something. It was the first time in the history of the country. We like it when history is made, right? And all the Democrats did what the Democrats always do. They goose-stepped together, as they always do. They marshal their troops, and they do not deviate because, they're fascists is the thing about them. So there are no independent thinkers in the Democrat Party. If only 4 Democrats had voted with McCarthy, then he'd still be Speaker of the House, and we'd be talking about something else right now. But they're so crooked. How crooked are they? That they wear their armbands, they goose-step together in lockstep, and no one deviates from the party line, and that's how they work. They're the left. They're not liberals. They're the left. They're the real left. Lefties. So we've got that, and every stinking one of them, and I do mean every stinking one of them, voted to get rid of Kevin McCarthy because they like chaos. And if they can make the Republican Party appear to be the party of chaos, then they would burn down the Capitol in order to do that just for one day of good headlines. So 208 Democrats and 8 Republicans voted to expel Speaker Kevin McCarthy from the speakership of the House of Representatives. It's a truly remarkable day in politics. And again, while I agree, and there is some point at which you've got to say, enough enough. Just one more cycle, just one more congressional resolution, just one more threat of a government shutdown. Who cares? I love a government shutdown. I wish the government would shut down today. Can we shut down the government today? I think it'd be fun. Just shut the government down. And so we got that going. And there's a lot to talk about, and I want to hear from you on that, naturally. And we are at 888-630-9625. And as I said, opinions vary on this. Again, I like Matt Gaetz, Congressman Matt Gaetz. I agree with pretty much everything that he has to say about Speaker McCarthy, who, I've always been, let's say, a little bit tentative about. He's not the most articulate Speaker of the House that the world has ever seen. But things are, who wants to be a Republican Speaker of the House? You're John Boehner, you're Paul Ryan, you're Kevin McCarthy. Doesn't look like a very good job, Republican Speaker of the House. Democrat Speaker of the House, you just get the bullwhip out, you crack everybody across the back like the Democrats in the old days, and everybody stays in line. Nobody steps out of line with the Democrats. But they created this new rule back in January when Kevin McCarthy became the Speaker of the House. And lots of new rules, but one of them was that he was forced to agree to in order to get the votes to become Speaker of the House. One of them was that a single member of the Republican caucus can step up and file a motion to vacate, which means kick the Speaker of the House out of the speakership. And then all you have to do is get every single Democrat to go along with you and get a few more Republicans, and the Speaker is gone. And that's what happened yesterday. It was pretty wacky. That is a new rule. It used to be you had to have a whole bunch of people in your caucus be in favor of kicking you out before the motion to vacate would carry. But he agreed to change the rules. Kevin McCarthy agreed to change the rules at the insistence of Matt Gaetz that only one member of Congress could get the ball rolling with a motion to vacate. More language from Washington, D.C. A motion to vacate. Does that mean you're going to the bathroom or something? What is it? What does that mean? And just crazy. So we had that going on, and there was a great deal of drama. Great deal of drama indeed. So I've got, and one of the people that voted, there were 8, again, Republicans that voted to kick Speaker McCarthy out. I think he was quite surprised by this. And one of the reasons he may have been surprised is apparently Nancy Pelosi said that told Kevin McCarthy that she'd have his back. Sucker. I mean, honestly, that first thing I thought of was the line in Animal House where, they took Flounder's brothers, Lincoln Continental, and they went out and wrecked it and crashed it all over the place. And then, they had to explain to Flounder, face it, Flounder, you beeped up. You trusted us, right? Because that's what Kevin McCarthy did with Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi said, I'll have your back if, one member files a motion to vacate. I'll take care of you. I got your back. But it turns out, surprise, surprise, this is really hard to believe. She's a lion Sacagawea. She's a lion Sacagawea. She really is. It's not really hard to believe if you've been paying attention at all. But she's a major league lion Sacagawea. And Kevin McCarthy just learned that yesterday because he was lied to, deceived, screwed over by Nancy Pelosi. And I don't know why he was so stupid to think that she would honor an agreement, because you've honestly got to be demented to think that Nancy Pelosi is going to honor an agreement with you and save you when there's an opportunity for the Democrats to create chaos in the Republican caucus while they're in charge of the House of Representatives. They will destroy you. They're going to burn your cars out in the parking lot. They're going to rob your homes while you're at work. You trust these people. That's low IQ theater, I've got to say. And he foolishly thought that some Democrats, it would have only taken 4. If 4 Democrats had moved over and supported him, then he'd still be Speaker. But every single one of them is a goose-stepping, armband-wearing Democrat Party, tool. That's a multi-purpose word, tool. So we got that. Now, the Republicans that voted against Speaker McCarthy, Matt Rosendale of Montana, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Bob Good of Virginia, Matt Gaetz of Florida leading the charge. And again, personally, I like him, and I think most of what he said is true about Speaker McCarthy. Maybe you wait until after the next 45 days and the next congressional resolution, and the next panic about the government closing tomorrow and little Timmy and all that stuff. But he decided to go now, and he didn't have a lot of backing from other Republicans. Eli Crane of Arizona voted to get rid of Kevin McCarthy. Tim Burchett of Tennessee voted to get rid of Speaker McCarthy. Ken Buck of Colorado, who there's a lot to talk about there, and Andy Biggs of Arizona voted to get rid of the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. And that's it. That's it. They voted to get rid of him. And then every single Democrat in the House of Representatives, without deviation, because they're joined at the genitals or something. I was going to say the hip, but that's too trite. So they... honestly, they're in a hot tub, naked, doing mescaline together all day, every day. That's the Democrat Party. And every single one of them goose-stepped to the destruction of the Republican Party, rather, because that's their mission. And that's their stated mission. And Nancy Pelosi can't be trusted. And there you go. So Kevin McCarthy beeped up. He trusted her. And that was a big, big mistake, and I'm sure that he sees that now a little too late. So we've got that going on in Washington, D.C. Lots of crazy. Kevin McCarthy ejected as House Speaker. A headline: Panicked McCarthy looks for fire alarm. The Babylon Bee. That's a pretty funny one. And also there are there are efforts all over the place to draft. I think Steve Scalise, who is number 2 to Kevin McCarthy in the House, or was until yesterday. I think that he was, you may remember, shot and nearly killed by a Bernie Sanders volunteer. Bernie Sanders is a socialist, and his volunteer, presumably a socialist too, was on a baseball field to murder every Republican on the baseball field, the whole baseball team. Steve Scalise was shot and nearly murdered. It was a suicide attack by the Bernie Sanders supporter. And Steve Scalise is a good, solid conservative and Republican and American, and he's a symbol also of Democrat Party political violence. Their suicide attacks, their murderous rampages, the Democrats. We've got all kinds of interesting things going on with an acting Speaker of the House right now, Patrick McHenry, and there are some interesting elements in there because the first thing he did was kick Nancy Pelosi out of a fancy office that she was given as former Speaker of the House, and that's pretty darn funny, I've got to say. One of his first acts as acting Speaker of the House, Representative Patrick McHenry, ordered former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, to vacate her being evicted. You're going to put all the boxes out on the street and the curb there, let people loot through them. Democrats will come steal everything you leave on the curb. Nancy Pelosi to vacate her Capitol hideaway office by Wednesday. That's today. Quote, please vacate the space tomorrow, comma, the room will be rekeyed. So I got to say, Patrick McHenry, that's a nice move. High five. That's pretty funny. She'd do it to you, and then she'd send ricin to your grandmother, because that's Nancy Pelosi. She's not on our side. So we got that going for us. Newt Gingrich on the subject. Matt Gaetz defending himself. Also, Andy Biggs explaining why he voted to get rid of Speaker McCarthy. I think they speak well. Steve Scalise is reportedly making phone calls, trying to round up backers, trying to round up support for himself to become the next speaker. So we've got that. We've got LGBTQ, because Democrats still have men competing as women in sporting events, and some people are having enough of that. And I've got a Monty Python thing for you on that, because they're so ridiculous. We've got that. President Trump with a gag order from a left-wing judge because they don't believe in free speech or the Bill of Rights or America. And they will shut down him just like they'll shut down you. We got a big national warning taking place this afternoon. And fast food companies like McDonald's might be in trouble. That and a whole lot more. We are at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Let's go right to the telephones and start talking to the nice people. Let's go to Sean, calling from the great state of Maryland, the Bay State. Sean, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on the air. I'm out here in La Plata, Maryland, and I can articulate for you in 45 seconds the case the mainstream doesn't want to talk about. Matt Gaetz is a hero, and here's why. This entire situation is designed to drive a stake through the heart of the establishment in D.C. It's what no one wants to do, including McCarthy. This is the trick the establishment's been using since the days of Reagan, when he had 100,000 pages on his desk in some stupid omnibus, and he had to do up or down vote, and he said he'd never do it again. 40 years later, they've been doing it every year for 15 years. They put this omnibus, they use these continuing resolutions for the entire spending budget, so you don't get to argue about the spending for crazy things. It's up or down, and then they say, oh, the soldiers aren't going to get paid. That's what this is. The entire establishment's beating the drum like, oh, this is so stupid. It's a circular firing squad. The Republicans are so dumb. Anytime the entire establishment's beating the drum on one point, you can be sure that they're lying. This is about stopping it. As a condition of getting that speaker seat, Kevin McCarthy promised to bring the 15 individual bills to the floor so we could debate the actual spending. That's the only leverage the House of Representatives has. And for him to cave on this 45-day CR and to contemplate yet another omnibus is treason. He deserves to be out on his ear. Matt Gaetz is a hero, and he should never pay for another beer as long as there's a patriotic American in the room from this day forward. Chris, take it away, buddy.
Very well done. Very well done, Sean. You had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you covered a whole lot of stuff there, and this is going to be hotly debated for years to come. I can assure you, whether this was a brilliant move. And I got to say, at some point it just kind of had to happen. At some point, because there was never going to be a point where the Republican caucus said, you know what, because they just had their chance from January until now, and it didn't happen. So, you can lead a horticulture. Yes, I'm getting some response. Yes, it was a Dorothy Parker reference. Yes, it was. The famous American writer and occasional humorist Dorothy Parker, New York, your 1920s and 30s and so on, and the old the old saying, there are lots of old sayings, but you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. Dorothy Parker, long ago, 100 years ago, was asked, so the story goes anyway. Use the word horticulture in a sentence. And she said, you can lead a horticulture, but you cannot make her think. You see, so you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. It was a little cleverism from long ago. And when it comes to Congress and the Republicans and the Republican Party, I don't know how many decades, how many years have to go by, how many annual budgets have to pass with the same clown show that I've been making fun of for years and years. I always look forward to a government shutdown. I always say that it's just bad television, it's cable television, it's theater. It's this fake brinkmanship that we find ourselves in every year, sometimes more than once a year. And, oh no, a continuing resolution. We need a continuing resolution because the government can't function, and little Timmy's scout troop won't be able to go to Jellystone if we don't fund the government by midnight on Saturday. And it's all this fake drama. And the reason all that stupidity happens, and it is profoundly stupid, and it happens every year over and over and over again forever, is because the Congress, lazy, stupid, corrupt, they have, it's made up of a group of individuals who are lazy, stupid, and corrupt, most of them. And then occasionally you get a good person in there, but really who would want to be a member of Congress at this point? Much less want to be president of the United States at this point. But that said, year after year, they get this thing called regular order. In fact, there's a great piece that I brought in today on what is regular order, and it's kind of fun. I want to share that with you coming up as well. But basically, the law, Congress passed a law that requires Congress themselves to pass an actual budget every year. And in order to pass that budget before the new fiscal year begins on October 1st, they must pass a budget, which never happens. And in order to pass the budget, you have to have individual appropriations bills that deal with all of the various areas of government funding. And we just stopped doing that long ago. And then we create this fake drama, this fake crisis, and it's all fake. And people should be in handcuffs for what they do to the country year after year with this stupidity. And we find ourselves doing it over and over and over again. And honestly, Matt Gaetz came in and cut a deal with the incoming speaker at the time, who may or may not have become speaker, Kevin McCarthy, and say, okay, well, I'll vote for you, and all these other people will vote for you for speaker, and you'll become Speaker of the House, but you've got to make a series of promises here. And promise number one, you will restore, regular order. And we will have the 12 appropriations bills as required by law. And once again, that didn't happen this year. And they took 6 weeks off, basically the whole month of August plus 2 weeks, and they're away from Congress. Instead of being in Washington, putting together the appropriations bills and restoring regular order, pulling the bills together and putting them through committee, which is how Congress is supposed to work, but doesn't. And it is a big part of the fundamental dysfunction in Washington, D.C. He also, Kevin McCarthy, cut deals with Republicans that he would not allow votes to pass, put votes up, bills up for votes, rather, if he knew that he was going to rely on more Democrat votes than Republican votes. That was a promise he made. I will not put bills through Congress that require more Democrat votes than Republican votes, or will get more Democrat votes than Republican votes. And yet he did that. In fact, the continuing resolution was that they were supposed to pass a balanced budget amendment, since we're $33 trillion in debt, and it would take us more than 1 million years to pay it off if we were actually paying it off, which we're not. Also, they were supposed to take up term limits. Didn't take up term limits. Didn't follow through on the promise that he would only pass bills with more Republican votes than Democrat votes. Didn't go for the balanced budget amendment, right? Didn't do these things that he had promised. And just restoring regular order and having 12 appropriations bills. Good idea. And not going to continuing resolutions, CRs. We call them CRs because everybody has to speak government stupid, right? And Kevin McCarthy didn't make good on those promises, which are big and many, and they're promises. Now, should Matt Gaetz have taken a different avenue, a different path? Should he have waited for the next continuing resolution in 40, 45 days, because it's going to happen again? And then say, hey, wait, honestly, it's Charlie Brown and the football. It's Animal House. And how many times are we, the American people, supposed to be suckered by this BS in Washington, being peddled by people who say things and make promises and then don't make good on their promises? For how many years, for how many decades is this supposed to go on? some people, a small number of people, had had enough. And of the 8 Republicans, a couple of them have kind of fishy standing in the midst of all of this, too. And also, I think that Matt Gaetz doesn't love being in Congress, doesn't really think that he's going to make a career out of it. Spent his whole life on Capitol Hill being a House member and a senator because he's just, it doesn't seem to be his thing, And that's kind of the way it's supposed to be with members of Congress. You're supposed to go and serve for a while, then go back to your real life and run your business and raise your family and be a normal person back in your home state rather than making a career out of riding around in the back of limousines and being feted by lobbyists and then lying to everybody and slow-rolling the American people year after year, decade after decade, till we're $33 trillion in debt and we go belly up and everybody's living in a cardboard box on the sidewalk instead of just, 1.5 million people as we have now. Another thing I want to get into today, if we can, is there's a little bit of movement. It's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that's pushing it, and some people jumping on the bandwagon that it's time to, I've been talking about it for a long time, it's time that we put people in mental institutions, all the mental people who are out on the sidewalk stabbing people in the neck and murdering them, as we had the video surfaced yesterday, and the other lunatic in a dress, the man in a dress going around bashing people's heads in with a hammer, because the Democrats, and for that matter, the Republicans, said, hey, let's take all our mentally ill people and throw them out on the sidewalk to fend for themselves and see what happens. All right, well, we've tried that and we've seen what happens. Now it's time to reopen, rebuild mental institutions and throw people into them involuntarily because they belong there for the sake of civilization and a civil society. That's something I've been talking about for a long time. And now Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and a couple of other people talking about it as well. And it's overdue. Our cities are open-air insane asylums, open-air loony bins, and it's time that we had some leadership anywhere. Do we have any leadership anywhere? Honestly. All right, let's go back to the phones. And I got a bunch of audio to get to also, but this is a story where I want to hear from you and talk to you as well. And I know not everybody's going to agree with what I have to say, and that's fine. It's a circumstance where not everybody's going to agree, and that's good because we're America. So we discuss these things out in the light of day. The left doesn't. They impose gag orders because they're fascists. They're the left. They're not liberals. Now let's go to the phones. Let's go to Melvin, calling from Macon, Georgia, home of the Macon Whoopies. Melvin, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, and I've called in before, and it's really outside of Macon. I claimed Macon years ago whenever it was more conservative, and not anymore. So I'm out in the boondocks from there. Some of the things that I was listening to you on, which is so point on, is if you started putting them in mental institutions, you'd have to put a net around Washington first, like the House, the Senate, and the White House, and let them go for a blow, literally. And that's one thing. The other thing is, I hear what you're saying about Matt Gaetz, and I do think with McCarthy there was a different way to do it. But once again, it seems like the Republicans continue to play Russian roulette with a full chamber. You can't miss. They take one step forward and about 20 steps backwards. When they're making progress, it's like we've got to put the proverbial turd in the punch bowl and do that. Well, it seems like there's no punch in the bowl left because there's just one big one, okay? And I'm not saying that degradingly, but
that's good stuff.
And in the state of Georgia, by our screw-ups, by losing the Senate, how many $1 trillion did we go backwards because the Democrats on their Mad Hatter spending when, once again, we were playing Russian roulette with a full chamber in the state of Georgia? It cost us how many $1 trillion? And right now, with the crime in the streets, the illegals coming across the border, the fentanyl that's killing our Americans, all these other issues, I wish that they would have gone behind closed doors and worked this out. But as you stated, the liberals are lockstep. I don't call them fascists. I call them communist, fascist, Marxist, socialist. That sums them up because there's a little bit of each ingredient in the witch's brew. That's where I'm basically going with it. I agree with you in some areas, and like I said, I wish they would have come across and done something better than what they're doing right now. Right now, we had a lot on the forefront with the impeachment and trying to work illegals and trying to have a united front, and it seems like we've gone backwards again. That's basically where I'm coming from, sir, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm a devout listener to your show, and I totally concur with the majority of things you say. I guarantee you.
Well, I thank you very much, Melvin. And look, this is a complex situation that was created yesterday, and there's going to be a lot of disagreement about it, to be sure, and about the timing and the planning or the lack thereof, and whether it was well executed or not, whether it's necessary. I think that it's necessary to kind of blow the thing up. And hey, how about restoring regular order? Let's get back to a budgeting process as God intended to have our budgeting process, and that is that bills go through committee, that they're debated in committee room hearings in the light of day. They make their way through the process. We have appropriations bills, 12 of them as required by law. We have the budget in on time instead of these fake little crises every fiscal year at least. And I'm annoyed by and sick and tired of the repetitive stupidity of Washington, D.C., this annual ritual where we do the same idiotic thing over and over again. And at some point, honestly, people have been talking about it for years and years and years, and nothing ever happens. Hey, we got the speakership back. Oh, he promised to restore regular order. He promised to have 12 appropriations bills. He promised they'd go through committee as is required by law and as American custom and tradition. And it's how we do things, and it's how we keep the kitchen sink and the garage and the '67 Corvette from being thrown in every year, where everybody gets all their goodies thrown in. And I heard, who was it? It was Stephen Miller this morning or last night. Stephen Miller, a Trump person, and he's a serious conservative and everything. And he's saying, just go with look, the Democrats made it this way. Just go with the continuing resolution and throw in everything you want. And I'm like, well, you just fell into the trap there. You just fell into the crevice that we're trying to avoid, where you do what they're doing, which happens a lot, because they're getting away with it. Like ballot box stuffing and mail-out ballots, and the Democrats do all this corrupt stuff. And then what we conclude as conservatives is, well, we've got to do the same thing, or we're going to be the big losers in this. And then we fall into the trap. Now we're doing what they're doing. We're stuffing ballot boxes. We're harvesting ballots. But hey, they harvest ballots. It's legal. We've got to do it, or we're going to lose. So we start harvesting ballots, right? Hey, it's a continuing resolution. They're throwing in the kitchen sink, and every dream that they've ever had is in there. We've got to do the same thing to get everything we want. And then we're $33 trillion in debt, and we're all just yelling at each other and throwing beer bottles at each other. And we're not getting any smarter. We're not getting any better. We're leaving a disaster for the next generation. And I think, at some point, it would be nice if some grown-ups took over. Remember that term, grown-ups? Have the grown-ups take over? Have the adults in the room? Are there any adults left in the room? Honestly. Because I'd like to see our government run as it is intended, and I'd like to see leaders who are interested in reducing the national debt and not just growing it every stinking year, as we're doing this year, by multiple trillions of dollars. Because, that's a big word in Washington, unsustainable. That's unsustainable. But we keep doing it, and our political leaders just do it again year after year. Hey, you've only got another year to get it right next time. Are you going to get it right next time? And decades go by, and there are never any grown-ups in the room. And, Matt Gaetz is, on some level, one of the teenagers in the room. But he finally put his foot down and said, enough. And I don't know if there's any other way to do it. I think there should have been a plan in place. There wasn't. And giving the Democrats this victory to create chaos in the Republican caucus, and then the news media jumps in and does their part, of course, I think maybe a plan would have been a good idea. Now, listen, when I say that Matt Gaetz should have had a plan, you're going to make this move, should have had a plan. Here's what I'm talking about. And I'm going to play some Stephen Miller talking about this very same thing, should have had a plan. But here's my thinking when I say you should have had a plan. If you're going to, let the balloon go up and you're going to say, going to take out the Speaker of the House, here's what I would have done. Let's just say if it were me. I got the Democrats are going to help me, but I'm going to be using them instead of them using me to create chaos in the Republican caucus. I'm going to use them to remove the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and then guess what? I've got a plan, and I've already rallied the votes. I've already rallied the votes for, let's just say randomly, Byron Donalds. I like Byron Donalds, and it just could be 5 other people. Byron Donalds is my man. He's going to come in, and he's going to be elected the same day Speaker of the House. We're going to make him Speaker of the House the same day. And then that same day, you bring at least one bill into the Congress and you pass it right away. And then before the close of business, you've got, wow, the Speaker of the House was removed. A new Speaker of the House was installed, and they've already gotten to work passing bills. And this one is amazing. He's restoring regular order to the Congress where bills have to go through committees. We're going to have 12 appropriations bills. We're going to start passing them. McCarthy actually passed several bills, and he deserves credit for the bills that he did get through. But, however, and if I were running this rodeo yesterday, I would want to have, not like, hey, look, I got the votes to kick him out. I don't like him very much, and I got some issues. But I would, just for the sake of the party and the country and for the process in Washington, all right, he's gone, let's say the next day, today. We got a new speaker in today because I've arranged for all this stuff, and we're already passing bills. Then America would say, wow.